The strange tape. It was supposed to be just another sleepover. Rika Yamamoto, a 17-year-old student at Shimizu High School, stood barefoot in the dim living room of her friend Keiko's countryside home. The rain outside tapped lightly against the paper windows, a rhythmic whispering that added to the eerie silence that had fallen over the room. "Come on, Keiko," Rika said, stretching her arms. "Let's watch something before we crash." Keiko Takahashi, her childhood friend and host for the night, was rummaging through an old wooden cabinet near the back of the room. Her family had recently inherited the house from an elderly aunt who passed away unexpectedly, and tonight was supposed to be a celebration of sorts. No parents, no supervision, just a few friends and ghost stories. But when Keiko pulled open the bottom drawer, she found something unexpected: a dusty VHS tape. "There's no label on this one," Keiko muttered. Rika walked over and peered down at the tape. The black plastic case was scuffed and dull, with a sticky note on top that had long since faded into a blotch of yellow. There were no markings, no studio logos, no handwritten titles, just blank plastic. "That's kind of creepy," Rika said with a nervous laugh. "Maybe it's a home video?" Keiko shrugged. Only one way to find out. She pushed the tape into the old VHS player connected to the boxy CRT television in the corner. The machine whirred, clicked, and the screen turned static for a few seconds before flickering into something strange. Wrong. There was no music, no opening credits, just silence and an image of a well standing alone in a field. The camera, if you could call it that, didn't move. The colors were washed out, flickering as if the tape had been corrupted. Then, abruptly, the footage cut to a grainy clip of a woman brushing her hair in front of a mirror. Her face was obscured. Her hand moved unnaturally, jerking in slow, disjointed rhythms. Rika leaned forward, uneasy. "Is this some kind of art film?" she asked. Keiko didn't answer. Another cut, a shot of the ocean, gray and violent, waves crashing soundlessly against jagged rocks. Then an eye wide open, staring, bloodshot. Then a nail slowly being pulled from a wooden plank. Each clip lasted only seconds, but together, they created a sense of escalating dread that neither Rika nor Keiko could explain. The last image was the well again. This time, something was moving inside its seething pail, crawling slowly upward, clawing against the wet stone walls. Just before the screen went black, Rika thought she saw a hand. The tape ended. The screen returned to static. The room was silent again, except for the soft buzz of the television. "That was messed up," Rika said, forcing a laugh. "What even was that?" Keiko didn't respond. Her face had gone pale, her hands trembling slightly. "I don't know," she said, but that didn't feel like a movie. And then the phone rang. They both jumped. It was the old rotary phone in the hallway, the one no one had used in years. Keiko stared at it, frozen. "You should answer it," Rika whispered. Keiko shook her head. The ringing stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Rika let out a shaky breath and stood up. "Okay, that was creepy, but let's be real. It's just a weird old tape. Someone was trying to scare people, that's all." "I don't think so," Keiko said softly. "My aunt used to say the house was cursed." Rika paused. "What do you mean?" "She said people who stayed here would sometimes see things, hear voices. She always kept a bell by her bed and made me promise not to watch anything on the old TV." "Keiko, she died in that room, Rika, in her sleep. They said her heart just stopped." "But her face," Keiko's voice trailed off. "What about her face?" "It was twisted, like she died screaming." A chill ran through Rika's body. She glanced back at the television. It was still on, still buzzing faintly. For a second, she thought she saw movement, just a flicker in the static. But when she blinked, it was gone. "That's enough ghost talk for one night," she said. "Let's just go to bed, okay?" They turned off the TV, removed the tape, and placed it back in the cabinet. But neither of them slept well. The next morning, Rika returned home to her apartment in Tokyo. The events of the previous night lingered in her mind, but she tried to push them aside. Maybe it was just her imagination. Maybe they were just tired, freaked out by a strange video and too many ghost stories. She didn't mention the tape to anyone, not even when she started seeing things out of the corner of her eye. A shape, a shadow, a flicker of movement behind her in the mirror. She didn't talk about the phone calls either. Every night since she left Keiko's house, her cell phone would ring once at exactly 14 a.m. No caller ID, no sound on the other end, just breathing. She blocked the number. It didn't help. The calls kept coming. On the fourth night, she woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. She had dreamed of the well. In the dream, she was standing at the edge, peering down into the darkness. A voice whispered her name from within. That morning, she checked her calendar. It had been exactly 4 days since she watched the tape. 3 days left. She called Keiko, no answer. She texted, nothing. By the evening, panic set in. She called again and again until finally Samine picked up. But it wasn't Keiko. It was a man's voice, calm, flat. You shouldn't have watched it, he said. You let it in. Who is this? Rika demanded, heart racing. But the line had already gone dead. The next day, she traveled back to Keiko's countryside home. She took a train and then walked the final stretch in the summer heat, the trees rustling overhead. The house looked empty. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was still and heavy. Dust floated in the sunbeams cutting through the windows. Rika called out, but there was no answer. She checked every room until she reached the guest bedroom. There she found Keiko. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, her face blank, her eyes glassy. Keiko, Rika ran to her, shaking her shoulders. What happened? Keiko looked at her slowly, as if waking from a deep sleep. It's real, she whispered. What? The curse, the tape, the woman in the well. She's not just in the video. She's here. Rika's blood ran cold. How do you know? Keiko turned her head toward the hallway mirror. Her own reflection wasn't moving. She came to me last night. I saw her crawling out of the TV. That's not possible. I tried to destroy the tape, but it doesn't burn. Rika sat down, her head spinning. How do we stop it? She asked. I don't know, but the countdown is real. You have 7 days after watching the tape. And if you don't, a loud bang interrupted her. It came from the living room. They both froze. Did you hear that? Rika whispered. Keiko nodded. They stood up together and crept toward the hallway. The living room was empty, but the TV was on. Static buzzed across the screen. Then the well appeared again. Rika backed away. We didn't turn it on. The camera zoomed closer to the well. A pale hand emerged. Then another. Rika screamed. Keiko grabbed her arm and dragged her out of the room. We need to find out where it came from, Keiko said. That Tapasamion made it. Someone started this. If we find them, maybe we can end it. Rika, panting, nodded. Where do we start? She asked. Keiko looked at the drawer where they had found the tape. There was a return address, she said. A name scribbled on the inside cover. I didn't recognize it, but I remember it now. Yamura. Who's that? I don't know, Keiko replied, but I think it's time we find out. The curse begins. Keiko hadn't spoken since the television turned itself on. The house had returned to a tense silence, broken only by the low hum of electricity still buzzing from the wall socket. Outside, the cicadas screamed into the growing dusk, their endless trill forming a wall of noise that somehow made the silence inside feel even more unbearable. Rika sat on the floor, knees hugged to her chest. Her mind raced, looping through the same thoughts. Over and over, this isn't possible. This is a prank, a nightmare, a movie, not real, not real. But then the phone rang again. Rika's head snapped up. Keiko didn't move. The old rotary phone in the hallway continued its slow, deliberate ringing. No flashing screen. No caller ID. Just a heavy mechanical bell, vibrating through the house. They didn't dare answer it. Not again. The night passed slowly. They barely slept, just lay on the floor in the living room. Blankets wrapped around them like makeshift armor. Every sound in the dark house felt amplified. Creaking floorboards, rustling leaves, their own anxious breaths. The cursed tape lay in the corner where Keiko had thrown it, untouched but looming in their minds like a sleeping monster. Rika's phone buzzed around 2 a.m. She hesitated, hand hovering above it. Unknown number. She stared at the screen until the ringing stopped. Then came the voicemail notification. She played it, slowly lifting the phone to her ear. There was no voice. Just static, then something else, a faint whisper as if from far away. 7 days. Rika dropped the phone. Her breath hitched. That voice wasn't robotic or distorted, it was alive. Feminine, cold, and it had spoken with certainty, like a promise. She looked over to Keiko, who was wide awake, staring at the ceiling. She said it, Rika whispered. She said 7 days. I know, Keiko replied. The next morning, they packed hastily and left the house. Rika couldn't bring herself to touch the tape again, but Keiko grabbed it, wrapping it in a towel and sealing it inside a plastic container. If this is what's killing people, Keiko said grimly, then we need to know where it came from. Rika nodded, though every part of her wanted to run the other direction. But denial was no longer an option. They were in it now. Whether they believed or not, the clock had started ticking. They boarded the next train to Shizuoka City and checked into a small hostel near the station. It was far from luxurious, but it felt safer than that house, less haunted, less watched. In the early evening, Keiko pulled out the case again and opened the container. Inside the towel, stuck to the back of the VHS cassette, was a small slip of paper she hadn't noticed before, yellowed with age, and nearly stuck to the plastic. It had a name scribbled in faded ink. Reiko Yamura, Akigahara District, Yamanashi Prefecture. Rika furrowed her brow. Akigahara, isn't that the suicide forest? Keiko nodded. Yeah, at the base of Mount Fuji. My aunt used to say people went there to die, but some of them didn't leave. She said their spirits stayed. Rika felt her skin crawl. You think that's where this started? Keiko stared down at the tape. Maybe. And maybe this Yamura woman had something to do with it. They both knew what had to be done. They were going to the forest. They arrived in Yamanashi the next morning. Fog hung low over the trees, and the air felt thick with moisture and silence. The base of Mount Fuji loomed in the distance like a sleeping giant. At the entrance to the Akigahara forest, a small wooden sign warned visitors in both Japanese and English. Think carefully about your life. You are not alone. There's always help. Rika and Keiko exchanged a glance. Neither spoke. They walked into the woods, following the narrow trail deeper and deeper into the heart of the forest. Keiko held a copy of a local map they had picked up at a gas station. On it, they had marked a small clearing where several abandoned cabins were once used by forest rangers. Decades ago. It was slow going. The deeper they went, the more oppressive the silence became. The trees grew denser, blotting out the sky. No birds, no wind. Just dead leaves and moss beneath their feet. Why would someone live out here? Rika asked, breathless. Keiko shrugged. Maybe they didn't want to be found. Finally, after nearly 2 hours of hiking, they reached the clearing. Half buried in vegetation stood the remains of an old cabinet's roof sagging, walls cracked, and windows covered in grime. But it was still standing. Keiko pushed the door open. Inside, the air was stale and damp. Broken furniture, mold-covered walls, and a fireplace filled with ash. But there was something else, a stack of dusty VHS tapes, piled haphazardly in a crate near the wall. Rika approached slowly and picked one up. It was unmarked, just like the one they'd watched. "There's more of them," she said quietly. "A lot more." Keiko looked around the room, her flashlight beam catching on a small shrine tucked into the corner. It was makeshifted framed photo of a young woman with long black hair, her expression unreadable. Her name was written in kanji beneath, Reiko Yamura. Beside it lay wilted flowers and a small ceramic bell. "This is her," Keiko said. "This must have been her place." They searched the cabin thoroughly. In a rusted metal box under the bed, they found a bundle of old notebooks. Most were water damaged, but one had legible writing. Reiko's journal. They flipped through the pages, reading aloud. "The dreams won't stop. She comes from the well, always the same crawling, dragging her broken body across the ground. I thought it was my imagination. But then the phone rang. I made the tape to trap her, to contain her. But she's not staying inside anymore. She wants to be seen. She wants to be remembered. I should never have recorded it. If you watch it, you must pass it on. Make a copy. Give it to another. Only then will she leave you. If you don't." The page ended in a smeared ink stain. Rika and Keiko stared at each other. "She created the curse," Rika said. "No," Keiko replied. "She tried to stop it, but it got out anyway." They returned to the city in silence, minds reeling. That night, back at the hostel, Rika finally asked the question neither of them wanted to voice. "Do you think we're going to die?" Keiko looked at her for a long moment. "Not if we pass it on." Day 4. The symptoms began. Rika woke with dried blood under her nose. Keiko said she'd been sleepwalking, standing in front of the mirror for nearly an hour, murmuring something inaudible. Later, Rika caught a glimpse of herself on the TV screen. The power was off, but her reflection moved a second too slow. That evening, they heard footsteps in the hall. When they opened the door, no one was there. Then the lights flickered, and the phone rang. Keiko answered this time. Her hand trembled, her face as pale as porcelain. She didn't speak, just listened. After a few seconds, she hung up and stared at the wall. "She said our time is almost up," Keiko whispered. "She said we're next." Rika stood frozen. "We still have 3 days left." Keiko turned slowly to her. "No," she said, "the time can change if you get too close to the truth." She speeds it up. A knock came from the closet. 1, 2, 3. They both turned, hearts pounding. Rika reached for the closet door with a trembling hand. She opened it. Nothing. Just coats, dust, a few suitcases. But deep inside, barely visible in the shadow, was a long strand of wet, black hair. First death. The morning after the hair in the closet, neither Rika nor Keiko spoke much. They both sat on the edge of their narrow hostel beds, staring at nothing, their minds looping through the same memory. The closet door, the hair, the silence, and then the finissement for now but no less present. Every moment felt like a countdown. Each tick of the clock a footstep closer to the inevitable. "I think we need to go back to Tokyo," Keiko said quietly. Rika blinked, drawn out of her daze. "What? Why?" "To copy the tape." Rika's chest tightened. "You believe it then, that making a copy will save us?" Keiko stood, began pacing. "That's what Reiko's journal said. Pass it on, make a copy, give it to another. That's insane. We'd be cursing someone else. Would you rather die?" The room went silent again. Rika hated this, every part of it. But the fear twisting inside her stomach was real, and it wouldn't go away. Every shadow now looked too dark, every sound too deliberate. Death was coming, slowly, cruelly, and Keiko was right. They had to do something. They returned to Tokyo that afternoon. The train ride passed in tense silence. Rika stared out the window, watching the trees blur by, the world outside feeling too calm for what was happening inside her. They arrived at Keiko's apartment after sunset. The air was hot and sticky, heavy with summer humidity. The old VHS tape still sealed in its plastic container was placed carefully on the coffee table. as if it were a bomb waiting to explode. Rika retrieved an old camcorder from her father's storage room, one of the only devices they had that could still copy from VHS to tape. As the machine's whirred to life, a sick sense of guilt settled in Rika's chest. "I feel like we're making a deal with the devil," she said. "We're not killing anyone," Keiko replied without looking at her. "We're just giving them the same choice we had." That didn't make it feel any better. They finished copying the tape by midnight. Now came the worst part, deciding who would receive it. But the choice was made for them, because that night, someone died. It was Sho. He was Keiko's ex-boyfriend, and he had been at the sleepover when they first watched the tape. He hadn't taken it seriously, lawing it off, calling it some edgy student film, and leaving early the next morning. Keiko hadn't spoken to him since, but now he was dead. They heard the news through a mutual friend. Sho had been found in his apartment that morning by his roommate, dead in his bed. No sign of trauma, no drugs, no illness, but his face, completely twisted, the friend whispered over the phone, like he was frozen in terror, eyes wide open, mouth stretched like he was screaming. Rika dropped her phone. It bounced on the couch and clattered to the floor. Keiko didn't ask what happened. She already knew. They went to Shu's apartment that evening. It was roped off with yellow police tape, but his roommate, John, let them inside quietly. The investigators had already taken what they needed, and the body was gone. But the room still felt wrong, cold, in spite of the heat, and thick with a presence that pressed against the skin. "I shouldn't be letting you in here," John whispered nervously. "They said it was a cardiac arrest. But man, I saw his face. That wasn't natural." Keiko nodded grimly. "Did Sho mention anything strange before he died?" John hesitated. "He said he'd been having nightmares, kept seeing this girl, with long black hair. Said she was watching him through the TV." Rika's knees nearly buckled. "Did he get any phone calls?" she asked. John nodded. "Yeah, like every night around AM. But the line would just go dead." Keiko's hand tightened into a fist. "He didn't make a copy." "What?" "Nothing," she muttered. "Never mind." They left shortly after, the weight of Shu's death sinking deep into their bones. He laughed at the tape, Keiko said once they were back on the street. But that didn't matter. The curse still found him. Rika was shaking. "So it's real. It's really real." Keiko looked at her. "It means we don't have a choice." Rika wanted to scream, at the sky, at the world, at whatever force had brought this cursed thing into existence. But all she could do was nod. Shu's death had proved it. They were running out of time. Day 5. The haunting grew stronger. Rika couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she dreamed of the well, of water, of fingernails scraping stone, of that eye staring up from the darkness. Worse still, the images from the tape began bleeding into her waking life. She saw them in flashes, like visual hallucinations. The mirror, the nail, the ocean, sometimes just for a second, and then they were gone. She stopped trusting reflections. Keiko was no better. She'd begun hearing things, voices whispering her name, footsteps following her down empty halls. She refused to turn on the television anymore, even to watch the news. They were unraveling, slowly, painfully, just like Sho. That night, Rika made a decision. They had to test it. The rule from Reiko's journal: if you watch it, you must pass it on. If it was true, then there was still a way out. They returned to the city park near their high school, a place where teenagers often loitered late into the night. Keiko had brought the copied tape in her bag. Rika watched from a distance as Keiko approached a group of older boys. She laughed nervously, struck up a casual conversation, and mentioned that she'd found a super messed up horror tape, and wondered if anyone wanted to see it. One of them, a boy named Daisuke, said yes. Keiko handed him the tape. "Tell me what you think," she said. She didn't tell him the rules. She didn't warn him. When she walked away, her hands were shaking. Rika watched her in stunned silence. "I can't believe we just did that," she whispered. Keiko didn't look at her, neither can I. That night, no phone call came. For the first time since they'd watched the tape, the phone remained silent. The next night, the same. No nightmares, no whispers, no death. Day 7 passed. They were alive. Rika sat on the edge of her bed and wept, but the relief was short-lived, because the next morning, they got a message. Daesuk was dead. The news hit like a freight train. They barely knew him. He'd only watched the tape 2 days ago. 2. The curse had shortened again. Accelerated, like it was angry. He had died alone in his bedroom, found by his sister. Same expression, same twisted face. Keiko stared at the TV in silence. "We copied it," she said. "We passed it on." "But it didn't save us," Rika whispered. Keiko turned to her, eyes hollow. "What if we have to keep passing it on? What? Maybe once isn't enough. Maybe it only resets the clock. Buys us time." Rika's breath caught in her throat. "So we have to what? Curse people forever just to stay alive?" Neither of them spoke. The weight of it crushed them. And that's when the phone rang. Keiko picked it up with trembling fingers. She didn't speak. Her eyes widened. Then she dropped the phone and screamed. Rika rushed over. "What did she say?" Keiko backed away, hands over her mouth. "She said she's already here." The lights flickered. The television turned on by itself. Static. Then the well, uncovering the truth. The TV went dark again. The image of the well faded, replaced by the reflection of Keiko and Rika frozen in fear, bathed in the pale blue light of the screen. The silence in the room was deafening, thick with dread and the weight of a single terrifying truth. The curse wasn't broken, and whatever she was getting closer. Keiko dropped onto the couch, clutching her head. Her breathing was ragged, her face pale and sweat slicked. "I thought we were safe," she muttered. "We passed it on. That's what the journal said. That's what she wanted." "No," Rika whispered, eyes locked on the television. "She wants more. She wants us to know." "Know what?" Rika turned slowly toward her friend. "The truth. About who she is. About where this started." Keiko looked up, eyes wide. "You mean find her?" Rika nodded. "Find Sadako or whatever's behind this. Maybe if we understand it, we can stop it." The next morning, they began their search in the university library in downtown Tokyo. They were running out of time if Daesuk's death was any indication. The curse could strike at any moment, no longer waiting the full 7 days. The rules had begun to change. The only way to regain control was to find the beginning. Their only lead was the name on the slip of paper, Reiko Yamura. Rika began by searching old newspaper archives. Keiko, meanwhile, looked through public records, death registries, and missing persons cases. Hours passed. The fluorescent lights above buzzed relentlessly, matching the ringing tension in their heads. Finally, Rika found something. An article dated March 1992, from a small local publication in Yamanashi Prefecture. The headline read, "Woman found dead in forest cabin, suicide suspected." The image was grainy, black and white, but unmistakably familiar. The woman's face was the same one they'd seen in the old shrine in the forest cabin, Reiko Yamura. According to the article, Reiko had been a reclusive video technician who had lived alone in the woods outside Akigahara for several years. Her cause of death was listed as apparent suicide, though her body had been found in a contorted position, with her eyes wide open and a look of horror frozen on her face. Rika's skin prickled. She flipped to the next page of the scan. There, buried in the bottom corner, was a second article even older. The headline read, "Psychic Girl Missing After Well Tragedy." The date, 1978. The article told the story of a young girl named Sadako Yamura, daughter of a famous but controversial spiritual healer. After her mother's suicide, Sadako had reportedly developed strange psychic abilities, visions, premonitions, the ability to burn images into film and video equipment just by being near them. Local villagers feared her. Rumors spread of strange occurrences, animals dying, electronics malfunctioning in her presence. Eventually, she disappeared entirely after an accident involving a well on her family's property. Her body was never recovered. Rika's mouth went dry. "Yamura," she whispered. "It's the same last name." Reiko and Sadako, they're connected. Keiko leaned over her shoulder, eyes scanning the screen. Reiko must have been related to her. Maybe a cousin, or her aunt. Maybe even her sister, Rika added. And she was a video technician. It makes sense. She might have been the one who recorded the tape, not to spread it, but to try to trap Sadako. Keiko nodded slowly. She thought she was containing the curse, but instead, she gave it form. A medium. The realization made Rika's stomach twist. She gave Sadako a way to live on, she said, through the tape. The two girls printed every article they could find and gathered their notes. Their next step was clear: return to the source. If Sadako had died in that well, they had to find it. That evening, they packed their bags and took the bullet train back to Yamanashi. Neither of them spoke much during the trip. The weight of everything they had learned was like a noose tightening around their throats. By dusk, they arrived at the edge of Akigahara again, this time, not to explore, but to search. They followed the path to the abandoned cabin once more. The forest was darker than before, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. Inside the cabin, Rika found the ceramic bell again and picked it up. It was cracked now, but the chime it made was still sharp, clear. "Sadako's spirit is angry," she said. "She was hurt, left to rot in that well." Keiko nodded. "If we can find the well and recover her remains, maybe we can end this." They lit a lantern and stepped deeper into the forest, using Reiko's journal entries as a guide. On one page, Reiko had sketched a rough map of the woods, with an X marked at a clearing beyond the cabin. It took them nearly an hour of stumbling through brush and half-buried paths before they found it. A stone circle, moss-covered, cracked, half-sunken into the ground. The well. Keiko approached first. She knelt beside the stones and peered down into the darkness. "It's dry," she whispered, "but it's so deep." Rika joined her, holding the lantern over the mouth. The light barely reached the bottom. The air that rose from it was cold and stale, and it smelled like damp earth and something older, something dead. "We need to go down," Keiko said. Rika's eyes widened. "You're insane. We don't have ropes or gear." But Keiko was already unzipping her bag. "I brought a harness," she said, "and a rope, just in case." Rika stared at her. Keiko met her gaze. "If her body is down there, we have to bring it back." They rigged the harness and tied the rope securely to a nearby tree. Keiko went first, descending slowly into the well while Rika held the rope above. The walls were slick and narrow, and the air grew colder with every foot. The silence was unbearable. Only the soft scuff of shoes against stone, and the rasp of the rope sliding through Rika's gloves. Then Keiko's voice echoed up from the darkness. "I see something." Rika leaned over. "What is it?" "A skeleton. She's still down here." The rope jerked as Keiko shifted. "Her bones are wrapped in cloth, like someone tried to hide her. But they left her here." Rika felt nausea rise in her throat. "Okay," she said. "Wrap the bones in the blanket. We'll bring them up. We'll bury her. Maybe that's what she's waiting for." But before Keiko could respond, she screamed. The rope snapped taut in Rika's hands, then loosened. Then, Keiko's scream echoed up, followed by a terrible thud. "Keiko!" Rika shouted. No response. Rika's heart pounded in her ears. Grabbing the lantern, she lowered herself into the well, breath shallow, vision swimming with fear. Halfway down, the lantern flickered and then went out. She screamed, blinded by darkness, clinging to the rope. Then another voice. Whispers, low, wet, coming from below. Rika clenched her teeth and forced herself to keep going. When her feet finally touched the ground, she called out, "Keiko." A groan answered. She crawled toward the sound and found Keiko lying against the stone wall, bruised but alive. She was clutching a bundle-wrapped bones, fragments of a skull, tangled black hair. "She didn't want me to leave," Keiko whispered. She grabbed me. Rika helped her up, and together they began the slow, painful climb back to the surface. They buried Sadako's remains near the shrine, behind the old cabin, under a small tree with pink blossoms. Keiko placed the ceramic bell on the grave. Rika lit a stick of incense, and they waited. The wind stirred the branches above. The air felt lighter, warmer. For the first time in days, Rika didn't feel like they were being watched. She turned to Keiko. "Do you think it's over?" "I hope so," Keiko whispered. "I really, really hope so." But neither of them noticed the TV screen, back in the cabin, flickering to life once more. The image of the well, then black, a past buried deep. The grave was still fresh. A mound of disturbed earth marked the final resting place of the girl whose spirit had haunted them. Her bones, now buried beneath the soil behind the cabin in Ekigahara, were meant to bring peace not just for her, but for Rika and Keiko. They had done everything right, recovered her remains, offered a burial, lit incense, rang the bell. But that night, the television turned on again. The screen buzzed with static before the image reappeared. The well, the water, the dark shape rising. It wasn't over. Keiko woke screaming. Rika rushed to her side, clutching her shoulders. "It's just a dream. You're safe, you're safe." Keiko's eyes were wild, her voice hoarse. She was in the corner, in the room, just watching me. Her face, "Rika, she doesn't want peace. She wants revenge." Rika stared at her, heart sinking. "But we buried her. We did what Reiko couldn't." Keiko shook her head slowly. Maybe the girl in the well wasn't the only one. They returned to the university library the next morning, sleep-deprived, barely functioning, but fueled by desperation. Rika pulled out the journal again, Reiko Yamura's handwritten attempt to document and contain the curse. She reread every line, every page, searching for something they had missed. That's when she found it. A single sentence, scribbled in rushed, frantic handwriting at the bottom of a water-damaged page. "The girl in the well is only the vessel. The curse began before her." Rika's fingers went cold. "The vessel," Keiko echoed. "What does that mean?" She wasn't the source, she was a container. For what? They stared at each other in silence, both afraid of the answer. Rika dove into historical records, searching for more about Sadako Yamura, anything not covered in the mainstream press. Hours passed. Finally, she found something. An unpublished interview transcript tucked away in a university research folder labeled "Private Interview 1979, Journalist, Hiroshi Tanaka." The subject, Shizuko Yamura, Sadako's mother. Rika printed it and sat with Keiko to read. "My daughter is not evil. She is a mirror. She reflects what is hidden. She sees the things no one else wants to see. They call her cursed, but she's only the echo. The curse belongs to the world that made her. They buried a secret in that well, long before my Sadako fell in." Keiko's voice cracked. "What secret?" The next lines answered. "There was another girl, years before Sadako. She was never named. Just a child, locked away beneath the Yamura property. They said she was mad, that her mind was broken. But really she knew too much. They feared what she might tell, so they silenced her." The interview ended abruptly. Rika and Keiko sat in stunned silence. "This wasn't just about Sadako," Rika said. "She was already broken, damaged. But something else was buried in that well, another spirit. A much older one." Keiko whispered, "And now they've merged." They knew what had to be done. They had to return to the well again. Not to bury, but to dig deeper. By nightfall, they stood once more at the edge of the stone circle. This time, Rika brought a shovel. Keiko held a lantern. "I hate this place," Keiko murmured, eyes flicking toward the forest shadows. "Same," Rika replied, gripping the shovel tightly. "But if we don't do this now..." She didn't need to finish, they both knew. The rope from their last descent still hung, tied around the tree. Rika rescued it and began lowering herself into the dark. The air inside the well was colder than before, heavier. About 6 feet down, she stopped and pressed her hand against the inner wall. It felt uneven, not stone but wood. "I think there's something behind here," she called up. She took the shovel and struck the wall. Once, twice, the third time, it cracked open. Behind the stones was a second chamber. It wasn't part of the original well. It was a hidden room dug into the earth, sealed with timbers, long forgotten. Rika wriggled through the narrow opening and dropped into the small hollow space. And there, in the center of the chamber, she found it. A child's skeleton, smaller than Sadako's, wrapped in rotting cloth, shackled at the wrists. Keiko's voice echoed down from above. "What do you see?" "Another body," Rika whispered. "A girl." Next to the bones was an old journal, mildewed but intact. She opened it with trembling hands. The handwriting was childlike, shaky. "They said I was wrong, that I saw devils, but I only saw the truth. They put me down here to make the voices stop. They said if I stayed quiet long enough, I'd be forgiven. But I never forgot their faces. I cursed them, every one of them, and all who look into their lies." The last page was a drawing, a well, a face, a single, staring eye. Rika climbed out with the journal. Keiko reached for it, flipping through in silence. Her face turned pale. "That's why the curse doesn't end," she said. "It's not just about seeing the tape. It's about knowing. The curse punishes truth seekers," Rika realized. Sadako became the vessel. But this spirit, this first girl, she's the rage behind it. And now, Keiko whispered, she's awake again. The next morning, they drove to a nearby temple. They had to try. The priest they met was old, soft-spoken, and at first skeptical. But when he read the journal and heard their story, his face turned solemn. "This is not a simple ghost," he said. "This is an Onryu, vengeful spirit born of injustice and rage." "Can you stop it?" Keiko asked. "No," he said, "but you might be able to appease it." He prepared a small wooden box, placing inside the bones they had recovered and the journal of the forgotten girl. He chanted a sutra, burning incense and binding the box with red silk cords. "Bury this in sacred ground," he said. "Not hidden, not forgotten, with a name." "But we don't know her name," Rika said. "You give her one," the priest replied. "What matters is that she is remembered." They returned to Tokyo and brought the box to a public cemetery on a hill overlooking the city. Under a cherry blossom tree, they buried the bones. Rika carved the name Ayami into the wooden marker. Keiko added beneath it. She was not wrong. She saw what others would not. They stood in silence. For a long time, nothing happened. And then the wind picked up. The leaves rustled. The weight in their chests lifted, if only slightly. And that night the TV stayed off. But the peace didn't last. On day 9, 12 days after they buried Ayami, a boy from their school was found dead in the gym locker room. His name was Junpei. He had watched the original tape at a party days ago without Rika or Keiko's knowledge. The curse had already spread. Rika stared at her phone in horror. "We didn't even tell him about it." "How did he?" Keiko's voice cracked. "The copied tape. Daisuke must have passed it on before he died." And just like that, they understood. The curse wasn't just a spirit of rage. It was a network, a spreading infection, carried through curiosity, through fear, through ignorance. Even after Ayami had been appeased, the curse she fueled lived on, embedded in the footage. In every copy, every view. It had become something bigger than any one girl. Keiko said at first, "This will never end." That night, Rika sat alone in her room. The TV was off. The tape was gone. But she still saw the well when she closed her eyes. Still heard the whisper. 7 days. But the voice wasn't angry anymore. It was tired. The nightmare repeats. The images started small. A fly crawling on the inside of Rika's mirror. Even though her window had been closed all night. A flash of the ocean sudden. Like a hallucination as she looked out the window of a moving train. Only to realize they were in the middle of the city. The fingers on her reflection didn't match her movements for a moment. A split second. But it was enough. The nightmare was starting again. Rika knew at the moment her phone rang at 3:17 a.m. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The static on the line was louder now. Less like a machine and more like a breath. A presence. Alive. Watching. Waiting. She sat up in bed, drenched in sweat. Her eyes scanned the corners of her room. Shadows seemed longer, darker, and at the edge of her vision, movement. Hair, wet, black, slithering across the floor. When she turned her head, it vanished. The next day, Keiko was silent. She sat on the couch in Rika's apartment, staring at the black TV screen like it might come to life at any second. "We did everything," she finally said. "We gave Ayami a name. We buried her properly. We should be free." Rika nodded, but she didn't believe it. "Maybe Ayami's gone," she said softly. "But the tape, it's still out there. Then we burn it." Rika shook her head. "You saw what happened to Reiko. She tried to destroy it. It always comes back." Silence. Keiko leaned forward, resting her forehead on her knees. "I'm seeing things again," she whispered. "The ladder, the nail, the woman brushing her hair. But not on the screen. In real life. It's like the tape is bleeding into reality." Rika's skin prickled. "That's how it begins. It pulls you in slowly until you're part of it. Or until it's part of you," Keiko murmured. By the end of the week, the images were constant. Every mirror in Rika's apartment showed a frame from the tape. She covered them with bedsheets, but still, in polished doorknobs, the reflection of that well would sometimes flicker in the corner of her eye. Water pooled in her kitchen floor with no explanation. The fridge opened by itself. A photo on her phone Changed her, and Keiko smiling at a summer festival last year. Now their faces were blurred. Eyes gone. As if the memory itself was being erased. Keiko's descent was faster. She began talking to herself, or rather, to someone only she could see. "I'm not afraid of you," she'd whisper. "You can't have me. You can't wear me." Rika tried to intervene. "You're not yourself. Let's go stay somewhere else, somewhere safe." Keiko only laughed. "Nowhere is safe, Rika, you know that." One night, Rika woke to find her friend standing at the edge of her bed. Her head tilted at an unnatural angle, her eyes wide. "I think she's trying to live again," Keiko said. Rika's heart pounded. "Who?" "Sadako," Keiko replied. "Or Ayami. Or maybe something else. I don't know anymore. But she's not content to haunt. She wants a body." Rika backed away. "Keiko, you need to sleep." "I do sleep," Keiko said. "And in my dreams I see your face at the bottom of the well." The next morning, Keiko was gone. She left behind a note, scrawled and hurried, shaky handwriting. "I have to go back to the cabin. I think there's something we missed if I don't come back. Don't follow me, please. I'm sorry." Rika didn't listen. She packed her bag and left within the hour, catching a train to Yamanashi. Then hiking through the fog-laced trails of Akigahara once more. She hadn't brought the tape. She hadn't needed to. Because now, the tape lived in her head. When Rika reached the clearing, the cabin stood silent, dark, dead. She pushed the door open slowly. The wood creaked. The air inside was cold and still. "Keiko," she called. No answer. She found her in the corner, curled up, arms wrapped around her knees. Her hair hung in her face. Her breathing was slow, shallow. "Keiko!" Rika rushed to her, kneeling down. Keiko's eyes open edgelessly, blank. "She's not gone," she whispered. "She's never gone." Rika grabbed her shoulders. "What happened?" Keiko looked up and smiled, but it wasn't her smile. The expression was too wide, too still, like a mask. "You should have stayed away," Keiko said. Then the lights went out. The cabin plunged into darkness. Only the sound of breath and the shifting of floorboards. Rika stood, backing away. "Keiko, what's happening?" Keiko rose slowly, her body moving like a puppet. Her head twitched to the side, her mouth opened, and a low, guttural noise escaped, something between a groan and a gurgle. Rika turned and ran. Outside, the forest was darker than night. Fog wrapped around her like wet cloth, muffling every sound. Her footsteps were swallowed by moss and soil. She didn't stop running until she reached the edge of the forest tunnel. The trees thinned, and the world looked real again. That night, Rika stayed in a roadside inn. She didn't sleep. At 2 a.m., the television in the corner turned on by itself. No remote, no sound, just static. Then the well, then a face. Keiko's face, but her eyes were black. The screen crackled. Keiko's voice came through. "You left me behind." Rika screamed and unplugged the TV, but it stayed on. "She lives through me now. She chose me. You're next." Rika fled the inn before dawn. She returned to Tokyo with no plan, no tape, and no hope. Keiko had been taken possessed, absorbed, or worse, and now, whatever force had claimed her was coming for Rika. The tape was no longer the only medium. It had moved beyond it. Back at her apartment, Rika found her walls scratched with unfamiliar writing. Not graffiti, not vandalism. Symbols, circles, eyes, spirals. Every screen in her apartment had turned on. The TV, her laptop, her phone, all played the same image. Keiko's face. No expression. Just staring. Mouth slowly opening. Rika smashed the TV. The image remained on her phone. She ran to the bathroom, splashed water on her face, looked into the mirror, and saw the ocean. She blinked and the vision vanished. But on the mirror, written in condensation, were the words, "It never ends." Rika knew what she had to do. There was no escaping it. But maybe, just maybe, she could contain it again. Like Reiko tried. Like Sadako's mother tried. She would remake the tape, trap the images, create her own version. A version that didn't spread. A final, sealed copy. For the next 3 days, Rika stayed locked in her apartment. She recorded everything. The ocean, the mirror, her nightmares, the image of Keiko's face, now burned into her memory. She transferred the audio of the phone calls, the static, the whispers, into the video timeline. Then she recorded herself, looking directly into the lens. "I am not afraid of you," she said. "If you want to live, live through this. Through me, but not through others." She added text at the end. "This is a closed loop. This tape will not spread. If you found it, destroy it." She burned the file to a DVD. No digital copies, no online upload. Just one disc. She sealed it in a metal box, wrapped in rope, and buried it in the woods near her grandmother's shrine. Weeks passed. No phone calls, no visions, no static. Keiko never returned. But Rika was alive, and the curse seemed silent, until one day, a package arrived at her door. No name, no sender. Inside, a VHS tape, no label. Rika stared at it, her breath gone. Taped to the front was a single note, scrawled in familiar handwriting. "You didn't finish it. K. The Well of Fate." Rika stared at the old VHS tape in her hands, the note attached trembling slightly as she held it. The handwriting was unmistakable echoes, but Keiko hadn't been seen in weeks. The cursed spiral of terror was far from over. This tape wasn't just a reminder, it was an invitation. She knew what it meant. They had to go back. Back to the source. Back to the abandoned house. The house with the well of fate. The house stood at the edge of the forest, swallowed by years of neglect. Its windows were shattered, doors sagging on rusted hinges. Vines clawed up the cracked wooden walls, reaching for the sky like desperate hands. The air around it was heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something old, lingering and waiting. Rika's heart pounded as she stepped onto the creaking porch. The sky above was darkening, bruised with storm clouds. She hesitated for a moment before pushing the door open. Inside, dust motes danced in the fading light. The floorboards groaned beneath her feet. The silence was so complete it pressed against her ears. She didn't need to look far. In the center of the crumbling living room, surrounded by scattered debris and broken furniture, was the well of fate. Its mouth was jagged with chipped stones, dark and endless. The faintest sound drifted up from its depths, water lapping. A whisper, a sigh. Rika stepped closer. The cold air from the well brushed her face like a breath from another world. The tape was in her bag. She hesitated, then set it down on the floor beside the well. Her hands shook as she took out a small flashlight and pointed it down the shaft. The beam cut through darkness, revealing a black void. No bottom, no end, just emptiness. Suddenly, a faint noise echoed, a soft scrape, like fingernails clawing at stone. Rika gasped, stumbling back. Her mind reeled with Memoriast well on the tape, the girl with wet black hair, the eyes staring up from the dark. And worse, Keiko's voice, whispering from the note, "You didn't finish it." She pulled out her phone to call for help, but the signal was gone. No calls, no messages. The storm outside grew louder, thunder rolling over the forest like distant drums. Rika was alone. Suddenly, the tape player in her bag began to buzz. She froze. The device was old, not connected to anything, but it started playing. Static first, then the faint image flickered on the screen. The well, then the face. Keiko's face. Her eyes wide, darkened. A whisper, "You can't run." Rika's breath caught. She wanted to throw the player into the well, but her hands refused to move. The image changed, showing the well's interior, twisting and endless. Then a hand reached up, long, pale, fingers dripping wet. It grabbed the edge and pulled. The power flickered. The house groaned, the walls seeming to breathe. A cold wind swept through the room, swirling dust and leaves. Rika wrapped her arms around herself. Suddenly, the floor beneath the well cracked. The stones shifted. A voice echoed, low and mournful. "You've come back." Rika stepped back, heart racing. "Who's there?" she whispered. No answer, only silence. Then, a soft, chilling giggle. The same sound she'd heard on the tape. The well pulsed. It seemed alive. Rika's legs moved on their own, stepping toward the edge. Her fingers brushed the cold stone. Suddenly, visions burst in her mind. The girl trapped, her scream muffled by water. The endless darkness swallowing light. The curses beginning. She heard a whisper in her ear. "Help me." Rika turned sharply. No one. But the well's darkness seemed to stretch, calling. She knelt and peered inside. Her flashlight caught something glinting far below. A locket. She swallowed her fear. Then, slowly lowered the rope she had brought with her. The descent was slow. Cold water lapped against her boots. Her breath came in sharp gasps. The air was thick. The rope creaked. And then, her foot touched something solid. She shone her light ahead. A small cavern, hidden beneath the earth. Inside, the walls were covered in old symbols. A shrine. And in the center, a wooden box, sealed tight. Rika reached out, hands trembling, and opened the box. Inside lay a bundle of tattered cloth. She pulled it aside. There, wrapped carefully, was a diary. The pages were yellowed with age, but the writing was clear. It belonged to Sadako. The diary told a story of pain, fear, and betrayal. Sadako's words spilled other loneliness, her visions, the way the world turned on her. She wrote of her mother's death, of the villagers' hatred, of the curse that was forced upon her. Most hauntingly, the last entry. If anyone finds this, please understand me. I am not evil. I only wanted to be free. Tears blurred Rika's vision. She closed the diary and looked up. The cavern was silent. The weight of Sadako's sorrow filled the space. Rika whispered, "I'm sorry." She began climbing back up, the box tucked tightly to her chest. As she emerged from the well, the storm had passed. The first light of dawn filtered through the broken windows. The house felt different, lighter. The curse's grip seemed to loosen. Rika made her way back to Tokyo. She knew what she had to do. The truth had to be told. Sadako's story had to be shrednut as a ghost tale, but as a warning, as a plea. That night, Rika uploaded the diary's contents carefully edited to avoid the curse's reach to a secure website dedicated to supernatural history. She included a message. Sadako was not a monster. She was a victim. The curse's pain and fear left to fester. Only by facing it can we hope to heal. She hoped, but deep inside, Rika knew. The well's shadow was never far. The ring was not just a story. It was a warning, a fate, the awakened ghost. The night was heavy with mist, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes the world feel unreal. The forest around the old well lay silent, shadows stretching long and twisted beneath the pale moonlight. But somewhere in the darkness, beneath the earth and water, something had stirred. Sadako was awake. For years, trapped beneath the well's cold grip, her spirit had lain dormant, bound by forgotten rituals and broken promises. But now, with her diary unearthed and her story shared, the veil had thinned. The curse was no longer just a chain of fear, it had become a living force, restless and hungry. In Tokyo, Akira sat alone in his cramped apartment, late into the night, a freelance journalist. He had been researching the strange disappearances linked to the old well and the curse of the ring. He wasn't afraid, he didn't believe in ghosts, not really. At least, he hadn't believed it until tonight. His phone vibrated with an incoming message. No sender, no words, just a single photo. Akira opened it with a frown. The image was grainy and dark, but unmistakable. A figure in white, long black hair covering her face, rising slowly from a well. His heart skipped a beat. A chill ran down his spine. Suddenly, the lights flickered. His computer screen blinked off and on. Static hissed through his speakers, and from the corner of his eye, he saw a shadow moving just beyond the edge of the room. Akira spun around. Nothing. But the air was colder. The hair on his arms stood on end. Then, a soft scraping noise came from his kitchen. Slow, deliberate. Akira's breath caught as the silhouette of a woman emerged from the darkness. Her face was hidden beneath a curtain of wet black hair. Her white dress was stained and tattered, trailing behind her like mist. She moved with unnatural grace, floating more than walking. Akira was frozen, unable to scream or flee. The ghostly figure reached out, her fingers, long and pale, brushing the air inches from his skin. He jolted awake. The room was dark, but the cold lingered. His heart raced. It had been a dream. Or was it? The photo was still on his phone. The lights were steady, but Akira knew it was no accident. Sadako had chosen her next victim, and it was only a matter of time. Outside the city, deep within the forest, the well pulsed with dark energy. Sadako's spirit clawed her way out, breaking free from the watery tomb that had held her for decades. Her body was ghostly pale, hair dripping with the well's cold depths. Her eyes were black pools of sorrow and rage. She emerged like a nightmare made flesh, stalking the shadows. Akira left his apartment the next day, unable to shake the feeling of being watched. His research led him to a small cafe near the university. There, he met an old woman named Yumi, who had lived in the village near the well all her life. Yumi's eyes were sharp, but tired. She knew the stories. She warned Akira, "Sadako does not forgive. She does not forget. The well is her prison, but it is also her domain. If she wants you, you cannot hide." Akira listened carefully, realizing this was no ordinary ghost story. "It's a curse," Yumi said softly, "passed down through blood, through fear. It feeds on those who watch the tape, but it also chooses those who seek it out." That night, Akira returned to his apartment with a new sense of dread. He didn't know how long he could hold on to his sanity. As he prepared for bed, a sudden knock came at his door. His blood ran cold. No one was supposed to know where he lived. He looked through the peephole. Empty hallway. No footsteps. Just silence. Suddenly, the power went out. Darkness swallowed the room. The faint sound of water dripping echoed through the apartment. Akira's phone buzzed again. Another message. No words. Just a video. He hesitated, then pressed play. The screen showed a live feed of his own apartment, and in the corner, barely visible, a figure in white stood watching him. The door creaked open slowly. Akira's breath hitched. He backed away. The woman in white stepped through the doorway, moving silently. Her eyes met his, black and endless. The world seemed to freeze. Then she reached out, fingers brushing his cheek like cold water. Akira fell to the floor, heart pounding, mind swirling in terror. Suddenly, the vision broke. He was alone. The lights flickered back on, but the sense of unease remained. Word spread quickly the next day. Another disappearance. A student at the university had vanished without a trace. No witnesses, no clues, only the lingering fear that Sadako's ghost was still hunting. Meanwhile, Rika received an urgent call. Keiko's phone, but the voice on the other end was distorted, unrecognizable. "I'm here," the voice whispered. "Waiting, watching." Rika's heart sank. She knew the nightmare was far from over. Determined to stop the curse, Rika and Akira joined forces. Together, they delved into the history of the well, the family tragedies, and the ancient rituals meant to contain the evil. They discovered a forgotten ceremonial way to bind Sadako's spirit once more. But it came with a price. One of them would have to enter the well again, face the darkness, and confront the ghost directly. Under the full moon, they returned to the forest. The air was thick with tension. The well loomed like an open wound in the earth. Rika took a deep breath, then began the ritual. Incense smoke curled around them as they chanted ancient prayers. The ground trembled. Water churned within the well. Sadako's voice echoed a haunting lullaby filled with sorrow and rage. Suddenly, the surface of the well broke. A hand reached up, then another. Sadako emerged once more. But this time, something was different. Her eyes shone with a strange light. Her expression was no longer just anger. There was a sadness, a plea. Rika stepped forward, holding out the diary. "Your story has been heard," she said softly. "Let us help you find peace." Sadako paused. The wind stilled. For a moment, the forest held its breath. Then slowly, the ghostly figure faded. The well calmed, and the night was silent once more. But as dawn broke, Rika knew the truth. The curse was a part of the world now, a shadow lurking just beneath the surface, waiting, watching, for the next circle to begin. The deadly race. 2 days. That was all the time Rika had left. 2 days to break the Corsair, lose herself to it forever. The phone call had come early that morning, an eerie voice whispering through the static. 7 days, now 5, now 3, now 2. Rika sat frozen, the cold sweat running down her spine. She had counted down the days since the curse began, hoping to find a way to stop it. But now the final hours were closing in like the tightening grip of a noose. It all started when the new tape arrived, one with no label, no explanation. Only a note from Keiko: "You didn't finish it." Rika had tried to destroy it, but it was impossible. Every attempt to erase or burn the tape failed. It reappeared in her apartment, on her desk, in her bag, like a shadow that refused to leave. Worse still, the visions had returned stronger than ever, whispers in the night, water dripping in empty rooms, cold hands reaching from nowhere. And now the clock was ticking. She paced her small apartment, clutching the ancient diary they had found deep within the well. The worn pages told a story of pain and fury, of a spirit trapped between worlds. Sadako wasn't just a ghost, she was a force fueled by hatred and sorrow, spreading her curse like poison through every copy of the tape. But there was one last hope, an ancient ritual, buried deep in the diary's final pages. A chance to seal the curse forever. Only one problem. The ritual required a sacrifice. Someone had to willingly descend into the heart of the cursed, confront the darkness face to face. Rika swallowed hard. She wasn't sure she could do it, but there was no one else. Keiko was gone, lost to the curse. Akira had fled, terrified. The only person left to stop the nightmare was her. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "If you want to save yourself, come to the well before midnight." The message chilled her to the bone. Someone or something was calling her to the source. She packed a bag with essentials, a flashlight, the diary, some incense, and a small box given to her by the priest, a talisman said to protect against evil spirits. At dusk, Rika set out toward the forest, her heart pounding with fear and determination. The trail to the well was overgrown and dark, the trees looming like silent sentinels. The fog wrapped around her like a shroud, swallowing every sound but the crunch of her boots on the earth. Every shadow seemed to flicker with movement. Every gust of wind whispered a warning. When she reached the clearing, the well stood before her like a black hole in the earth, cold and endless. The air was thick with tension, heavy with the weight of 1,000 lost souls. Rika knelt beside the stone rim, setting down her bag. She lit the incense, its smoke twisting upward in pale spirals. Closing her eyes, she began the chant from the diary's ancient prayer meant to bind the curse. The wind picked up, swirling leaves and dust around her. The surface of the well rippled, as if stirred by invisible hands. Suddenly, a voice echoed from the depths, a low, sorrowful moan that sent chills down her spine. "You cannot run, you cannot hide." Rika's eyes snapped open. A hand reached out from the well's blackness, long fingers dripping with water. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Her heart raced as she prepared to descend. Slowly, she lowered herself into the well, the rope cutting into her palms. Cold water lapped at her legs as she descended deeper into darkness. The air grew colder, heavier. Shapes shifted in the shadows' faces, eyes, fleeting glimpses of sorrow and rage. The curse was alive, watching, waiting. At the bottom, Rika found herself in a small cavern, lit by eerie blue light emanating from the walls. In the center stood a stone altar, carved with strange symbols. On it lay a cracked mirror, its surface shimmering like liquid. The diary's final page instructed her to break the mirror's final seal, holding the curse in place. As Rika raised a heavy rock to shatter the glass, a voice whispered behind her, "You can't save yourself without me." She spun around to see a figure emerging from the shadow, Keiko, or what was left of her. Her eyes were black pits, her hair a tangled mess. Her smile was twisted and cruel. "You chose this," Keiko said, stepping closer. "Now you'll pay." Rika backed away, heart pounding. Keiko lunged, grabbing her wrist with unnatural strength. A flood of images overwhelmed Rika's mind, visions of the well, the tape, the faces of all who had fallen victim. But through the haze, Rika found her resolve. She whispered the final chant, focusing on the light inside her heart. With all her strength, she smashed the mirror. The cavern exploded with blinding light. The shadows screamed, dissolving into mist. Keiko's grip loosened, her form flickering like a dying flame. "No," she gasped, voice fading. Rika climbed back up, the well's darkness receding. Outside, the forest was silent. The curse was broken. The tape would never spread again. 2 days, a lifetime of terror, and the curse was sealed forever. Rika looked up at the dawn breaking over the trees and whispered, "Goodbye," unveiling the truth. The air was thick with tension as Rika sat in the dim light of her apartment, the ancient diary resting on the table beside her. The curse had been sealed her, so she thought, but something still lingered in the shadows of her mind. A question she couldn't shake. Who was Sadako really? What had happened to her that birthed such a relentless nightmare? Her answer came unexpectedly. A package slipped under her door, wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. No sender's name, no return address. With trembling hands, Rika tore it open. Inside was a VHS tape, labeled simply, "Truth." Rika's heart pounded as she dusted off her old VCR. It had been years since she'd last used it, but tonight, she needed to see what was recorded on this mysterious tape. The screen flickered to life, filling the room with static. Then, the image sharpened a grainy video, dated over 20 years ago. It showed a young woman, pale and fragile, standing in a small, cluttered room. Her name was Sadako. The video began with Sadako speaking softly, her voice trembling with fear and sorrow. "I am not a monster," she said. "I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt anyone." Rika leaned closer, captivated. This was not the vengeful ghost from the stories. This was a frightened girl telling her side. The tape cut to a series of clips, a shadowy figure watching from a distance, whispered conversations, a door slammed shut. Sadako's words returned, layered over the scenes. "They say I am cursed, but they don't understand. They never asked why." Rika's fingers clenched. The diary had hinted at injustice, but this tape was more a confession, a plea. The footage showed Sadako alone in the family's home, isolated and scared. Her movements were hesitant, her eyes searching for something or someone. Suddenly, a man appeared in the framestern, cold. He approached Sadako with a folder of papers. "You must sign," he said sharply. "This will keep everything quiet." Sadako's hands trembled as she refused. The man's face twisted with anger. The tape fast-forwarded to a night scene. Sadako's room was dark except for a flickering candle. She was writing hurriedly in a journal, her face marked by desperation. Outside, distant voices echoed threats, orders, secrets. The man returned, this time with others. They forced the door open. Sadako screamed, but it was muffled, swallowed by the walls. The next clip was the most harrowing. Sadako was dragged into a hidden basement room, cold and damp. Chains clinked as they bound her wrists. She looked into the cameras, full of pain and pleading. "This is not my punishment," she whispered. "It's theirs." Rika's breath caught. The footage was a revelation. Sadako had been imprisoned, silenced for reasons unknown. Her curse was not born from evil, but from betrayal. The final part of the tape showed Sadako's last moments. She sat by a well, eyes fixed on the water's dark surface. "Forgive me," she said softly. "I only wanted freedom." Then, the screen went black. Rika sat back, tears streaming down her cheeks. The truth was clear. Sadako was a victim of cruelty, of fear and misunderstanding. Her curse was a desperate cry for justice. Determined to honor Sadako's memory, Rika reached out to a local historian, specializing in forgotten tragedies. Together, they uncovered more about Sadako's familiar powerful lineage with dark secrets and hidden sins. They learned that Sadako's mother had been ostracized, accused of witchcraft, and that Sadako herself had been blamed for accidents and misfortunes. With this knowledge, Rika began planning a new ritual not to bind or banish but to heal, to lift the veil of hatred and replace it with understanding. The night of the ceremony arrived. Rika stood at the edge of the forest, the old well before her. She held the diary and the tape, symbols of pain and truth. Incense smoke curled around her as she spoke words of forgiveness, calling Sadako's spirit to peace. The well seemed to sigh. A soft glow emerged from the depths. The air warmed, and for the first time, Rika felt the curse loosen not in fear, but in compassion. She whispered into the night, "You are free." The liberation ritual. The scent of burning sage curled into the air as Rika stood solemnly at the edge of the clearing. Behind her, the forest loomed quiet and breathless, as if nature itself was waiting. The well old, cracked, and long forgotten sat before her like the mouth of a wound that had never fully healed. This was it, the night they would try to end it for real. Sadako's story had been heard. Her diary exposed the pain, the betrayal, and the fear she had suffered in life. But the curse still lingered, refusing to die. The curse tape remained in existence, even after everything. It was a vessel, a prison, and it had to be destroyed. Rika wasn't alone this time. Taro, the young Buddhist monk she'd met through the historian, stood beside her. He had studied the rituals. He believed in the power of spiritual liberation, in prayers that could soothe even the most restless souls. In his hands, he held a wooden box handcrafted, sealed with gold-inked scriptures, and lined with sacred ash. Inside it lay the original curse tape. They had retrieved it from the storage locker that once belonged to the Research Institute. Somehow, it had found its way back there, as though drawn to the place where it was first studied. First misunderstood, now it would burn. But first, a final ritual, one to honor Sadako, not to banish her, to free her. Taro knelt before the well, the box placed gently in front of him. He lit a circle of incense, each stick forming a protective barrier between the living and the spirit realm. The smoke rose steadily, glowing softly in the moonlight. Rika sat opposite him, her heart pounding. In her lap lay the diary, open to the last page of prayer Sadako had written in her final moments. "I only wanted to be free," it read. Taro began to chant in a steady rhythm, his voice echoing through the trees like a bell in the fog. Ancient words filled the clearing, verses designed to guide lost souls, to help them shed their pain and pass on. Rika joined him, reading Sadako's final words aloud. As the two voices merged past and something changed. The air grew still, the temperature dropped, and then the well began to tremble. A low hum rose from the earth, deep and mournful. Water lapped against unseen stones, and a faint sound echoed from below. Crying, soft, childlike sobs. Rika's breath caught in her throat. It was Sadako, not the vengeful spirit, not the horror born from rage, but the child who had been left alone in the dark. The girl buried in silence and fear. "Keep chanting," Taro whispered, sweat beading on his forehead. The smoke from the incense thickened, curling into Shape's arms' eyes, a silhouette of long black hair rising above the well. She was here. Sadako's spirit hovered just above the well, translucent, flickering like a candle in the wind. She looked at Rika. Her face was no longer twisted in hatred. It was sad, hollow, weary. "I see you," Rika whispered. "I know what they did to you. You don't have to carry this anymore." Sadako's lips trembled. A single tear fell from her eye, vanishing before it touched the ground. Rika opened the diary wider. She held it toward the spirit. "This is your truth. The world knows now. You are not forgotten." Suddenly, the ground cracked. From the shadows around the clearing, the other victims began to appear, ghostly forms, each one marked by the curse, faces blurred by fear, eyes wide with the last thing they saw before death. They stood in silence, watching, waiting. Sadako turned toward them. For a moment, her eyes flickered with fear, then understanding. Rika stepped forward, heart pounding. She lifted the wooden box, holding it over the well. "This tape kept your pain alive, but it doesn't define you. Let it go." Taro nodded and opened the box. Inside, the tape sat quietly, humming faintly with energy. With a silent prayer, Rika tossed the tape into the well. Taro reached for the small bundle of straw soaked in sacred oil. He struck a match. The flames came alive. They dropped the burning bundle into the darkness. At first, nothing happened. Then, a roar like a storm unleashed underground. Flames erupted from the well, not with violence, but with light. Golden, warm, almost beautiful. The tape melted, and with it, the echoes of screaming trapped souls released, anguish dissipating into the air. Sadako's spirit began to rise. Her form softened. Her long black hair shimmered like silk. Her face turned upward toward the moon, and she smiled. Then she was gone. The other spirits faded too, one by one, their forms dissolving like mist touched by sunlight. The clearing fell silent. No wind, no whisper, just peace. Rika collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Taro placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression calm. "It's over," he said quietly. The days that followed were different. No more visions, no more phone calls, no flickers in mirrors, no cursed reflections. The world moved on, and so did Rika. She published Sadako's diary in full, anonymized, protected, and framed as a cautionary tale. The curse tape was never mentioned directly, but the message was clear. That fear, when buried, becomes something else. That silence is a cage, and that every soul, no matter how tormented, deserves peace. The well was sealed. The forest grew over the clearing, and the tapeth last copy was ash scattered by the wind. But Rika never forgot the face of the girl in white. She carried her memory, not as a nightmare, but as a lesson. A reminder of what happens when truth is buried, and when someone dares to unearth it. The new cycle. The fire had consumed the original tape. The spirits had been released. The diary had been made public, and for the first time in what felt like forever, Rika breathed without fear. For weeks, life returned to normal. The city was still loud. The trains still ran on time. People smiled in the streets, unaware of the darkness that had once curled beneath their feet. Rika stopped waking up in cold sweat. She didn't see shadows in the mirror. No calls came at 3 a.m. It was over, or so she believed. The warning signs were subtle at first. A friend from her university reached out to Aya, a film student who had recently discovered the Sadako case through Rika's published article. Aya said she wanted to make a documentary to honor the story. Rika hesitated, but agreed to meet her for coffee. They sat outside a cafe near Shibuya, sunlight warming their faces. "I read everything you published," Aya said, voice tinged with excitement. "The way you wrote it was like the spirit became real." Rika nodded slowly. "It was real, and we were lucky to survive it." Aya leaned forward. "I want to show people what you went through. The fear, the tragedy. I want to make it true to Sadako's memory." I even found a clip online, a supposed fragment of the curse tape. Rika froze. Her voice dropped. "What clip?" I unlocked her phone and pulled up a video less than 20 seconds long. Grainy, distorted, but unmistakable. The ladder, the spinning chair, a mirror cracking in slow motion, and the well. Rika slapped the phone from her hand. "Where did you get that?" I had jumped back, stunned. "To just downloaded it from a Reddit thread. It said it was a hoax." Rika stood, heart racing. "That fragment's real. It's a piece of the curse." I blinked, confused. "But I'm fine. I watched it yesterday and nothing." The phone rang. Both women froze. The ringtone sounded like static. Rika knew that sound. I picked up the phone and answered. "Hello." Silence. Then, a whisper, 7 days. Rika didn't wait. She grabbed Aya's hand and pulled her down the street. "Come with me. Now." They rushed through the crowd, disappearing into the alleys, until they reached Rika's apartment. She slammed the door behind them and shut every window. Aya stood stunned in the center of the room. That was a prank, right? Some weird troll? Rika looked her in the eyes. No, the curse isn't gone. It started again. I sank into the couch, pale. But you burned the tape, you ended it. I thought I did, Rika whispered, sitting down. But this curse, it spreads like a virus. All it takes is one copy, one recording. And someone must have made one before we destroyed the original. Aya's hands trembled. Then anyone who sees it. Rika nodded. We'll die in 7 days unless we break the curse again. That night, Rika stayed awake, scrolling endlessly through forums, video archives, and digital corners of the internet. Her worst fear was confirmed. Clips of the tape had resurfaced. Short ones, low resolution, but just enough. People were watching them, unaware of what they had triggered. Comments on the forums joked about creepy vibes and Kursakori horror aesthetics. But one post stood out. Username, KO302. Title, my friend died after watching this vid. Is this like that Ring movie? Body, I didn't believe her when she said she got a phone call after watching some glitchy video. She died last night. No cause. Just collapsed. No marks. I'm scared. Someone help. Rika stared at the post for a long time. This was no longer about her. No longer a personal haunting. It was spreading digitally, virally. The next day, she met Taro at the temple again. He listened carefully as she told him what happened. I sealed the original tape, but not the copies, Rika said. They must have been made before we burned it. Uploaded, transferred, edited. Fragments passed around the web. The curse mutated. Taro looked grave. Sadako's spirit may have been freed, but the imprint of her Pinehurst grudge remains, like an echo trapped in every pixel of that video. What do we do? Rika asked. Taro paused. There may be a new source, a digital well. We must find it. They started with Aya's phone. Taro conducted a cleansing ritual, while Rika reviewed her download history. The file had no proper metadata. It had been shared through an encrypted messaging app with no origin. It had seeded itself like a ghost. Rika sighed. There's no way to stop people from sharing it now. Taro placed his hand over the phone and closed his eyes. There is one way. We must trace the cursed code to its source. Find the first digital copy. Destroy it, and seal the server it lives on. Rika frowned. How do we find it? Taro opened his eyes. We follow the death trail. Over the next 3 days, Rika and Taro compiled a growing list of victims. People who had watched the clip and died within a week. Most were young. Most were skeptical. Many had posted the video before mysteriously vanishing offline. One lead stood out. A live streamer known as @void_sync. He had claimed the video was AI-generated horror, then went missing the next day. His stream was still archived on a paywalled site, and a clip of it showed him reacting to a fan submission. Taro and Rika accessed the stream. There it was. The ladder, the mirror, the well. Even distorted and pixelated, the curse pulsed through the footage. Rika reached out to an old friend, Daichi, a cybersecurity expert. He agreed to meet in person. They huddled inside a co-working space lit only by the hum of monitors. I've been tracking strange video hashes for weeks, Daichi explained. Glitched files that resist deletion. Some behave like living code is self-replicating. He showed them a map of connected servers. One red node pulsed at the center. Everything leads back to this address. It's a forgotten file host from the early 2000s. Japanese servers, abandoned, but still online. Rika stared at the screen. Can you take us there? Daichi nodded. But if that thing is alive in the code, it might not let us leave. That night, the three of them sat in Daichi's apartment, preparing to access the server directly. Taro set protective charms around the room. Rika took deep breaths. At exactly midnight, Daichi entered the access key. The screen went black, then filled with static. A familiar image appeared. The well, then the eye, then the face. Sadako. Only this time, her body was corrupted, flickering with digital noise. Her voice fragmented like broken code. She wasn't just a spirit anymore. She was inside the machine, inside the internet. Taro began to chant. Rika grabbed the USB key. They had only minutes. She downloaded the cursed file. The screen flickered violently. Static filled the room. Electric lights popped. Taro's voice rose louder. Suddenly, Sadako lunged at the screen. Her hand, digital but real, pressed against the glass from inside. Cracks formed. Rika screamed. Daichi hit the eject button. The download was complete. They smashed the laptop. Rika tossed the USB into a fire. Taro poured sacred oil into the flames. Sadako's scream echoed through the walls. Then silence. The screen went dark. The hum vanished. The curse had been drawn back, trapped in a dying file, purged by fire. Rika collapsed, exhausted. Daichi nodded. We stopped it. For now. Taro frowned. But the loop always returns. Rika whispered, next time we'll be ready. No escape. Rain lashed against the windows of the cramped internet cafe, turning the glass into a blur of light and motion. Inside, the low hum of outdated computers echoed through the dim room, broken only by the occasional clicking of a keyboard. Somewhere near the back, a young man hunched over a monitor, headphones draped around his neck, sipping cheap canned coffee. His name was Shun, 19. A college freshman with a part-time job and a fascination for horror stories. He didn't know what he had found yet, just that it was weird. A folder buried deep in a server on the dark web. A file titled simply, Reiko_clip1.avi. The preview image showed only static. Curious, Shun clicked it. Meanwhile, across town, Rika stood on the rooftop of her apartment building. The night wind tugging at her coat. The Tokyo skyline glittered in the distance, cold and silent. She breathed deeply, letting the cold air sting her lungs. It had been 48 hours since they'd destroyed the last known copy of the cursed video. Since Daichi burned the final USB, Taro led the cleansing rite, and the digital well had been sealed. Or so they believed. Rika had dared to hope it was over, that the curse had ended with them. But tonight, she felt it again. That familiar chill, the weight in her chest, the sense of being watched. She turned away from the edge and went inside. As she passed the hallway mirror, her reflection paused a second too long. Back in the cafe, Shun stared at the video. It was short, less than 45 seconds. The quality was bad, colorless, but it made his skin crawl. The footage began with flickering static, then cut to a spinning chair in a room with peeling wallpaper, a mirror cracked by an unseen force, a ladder leaning over an empty well. Then, a flash of a girl, her covering her face, standing motionless in the center of the frame. Suddenly, the screen cut to black. Then white text, you watched, she sees you. A chill rippled up Shun's spine. The lights above him flickered. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message, 7 days. The curse had survived. Rika's phone rang as she sat in the dark of her apartment. It was Daichi. Rika, it's back. Her heart sank. How? I don't know, he said. I just got a ping from a tracker I set up on the server we wiped. A new file was uploaded 2 hours ago. Same hash. Modified slightly, but it's the same curse. No, Rika whispered. That's impossible. Daichi's voice was flat. The cursed code mutated. We didn't destroy it. We just delayed it. Rika didn't sleep that night. She sat with the diary and the priest's old scrolls, trying to find something, anything hinted at how to stop the curse for good. But the curse wasn't written in blood anymore. It was written in data, in echoes, in bytes and binary. Sadako had evolved. At the cafe, Shun's hands shook as he packed up his things. He told himself it was nothing, just a creepy video. an elaborate ARG or internet hoax. But then he remembered the message, and the lights, and the voice that whispered his name as he left the bathroom. He hadn't told anyone yet. Not his roommate, not his friends. He was too embarrassed. But the feeling wouldn't go away. The feeling that something was following him, watching him, waiting. By the third day, Shun was seeing things, faces in windows, flickers of movement in dark corners. On the fifth day, his phone turned itself on at 3:33 a.m. and played the video. No prompt, no warning, just the cursed images playing in the silence of his room. He deleted the file. It reappeared. He unplugged the router. The video still streamed. On the sixth day, he saw her, in the reflection of a bus window, standing in the middle of traffic, hair soaked, dress clinging to her like seaweed, black eyes staring through him. He screamed. No one else saw her. That same night, Rika tracked the origin of the new video. It had been uploaded from an anonymous proxy server, but the location pinged from Shibuya, an internet cafe. Rika arrived just before midnight. The cafe attendant barely looked up as she entered. She scanned the room, heart thudding. Then she saw him. A boy slumped over a keyboard, headphones off, staring blankly at a frozen screen. Rika approached him cautiously. "Excuse me, are you Shun?" He looked up slowly. His eyes were bloodshot. "How do you know my name?" "I'm here to help," she said softly. "You watched the video, didn't you?" Shun's voice cracked. "I didn't know what it was. I just clicked it. I didn't believe it." She nodded. "No one does." He looked at her hollow. "She's coming. I can feel her." "I know," Rika said. "But we still have time. One night, we can fight her." They returned to her apartment where Taro was already waiting. Rika explained everything, the nature of the curse, the well, the ritual, and how it needed to be sealed again from within by someone who had watched the video. Shun swallowed hard. "You mean me?" Taro nodded. "You must face her, not as a victim, but as a witness." As the clock neared 3 a.m., they prepared. A circle of salt and paper wards was drawn in the center of the living room. The tape's echo had been burned into a black DVD copy, stored inside an old VHS player. The well symbolically recreated was a barrel filled with water, ancient symbols lining its rim. Shun sat in the center of the circle, clutching the talisman. The tape played. The screen flickered. Sadako appeared. Only this time, she wasn't climbing from a screen. She was already in the room, dripping wet, face obscured by her hair. She stepped over the salt. Taro chanted louder. Rika held the diary open, repeating Sadako's name. Shun stood up. His voice cracked as he said, "I see you." Sadako paused. The air grew heavier. He took a step forward. "You were hurt, betrayed, buried. But I see you now, and I'm not afraid." Sadako lifted her face. For a brief moment, her eyes met his deep wells of grief, rage, and longing. A tear rolled down her cheek. She vanished. Shun collapsed. Taro fell silent. Rika rushed to his side. He was breathing, alive. The next morning, there were no calls, no visions. The air felt still. Had they done it? Had they finally broken the loop? A week passed, then another. Life moved on. Shun returned to his studies. Rika published one last article, "How to Survive the Curse, a True Story." She ended it with a warning. If you find the tape or even a part of it, don't watch. Don't share. Don't spread her pain. The curse feeds on those who forget her story. Remember her. That's all she ever wanted. But curses are patient. They wait. They adapt. They whisper to those who are curious, those who are bored, those who don't believe. Somewhere, in a different city, in a different time zone, a school teacher stays late grading papers. She scrolls through her phone and clicks a link from a student email. Just a clip. It loads instantly. A spinning chair, a mirror, a ladder, a well. She frowns. Her phone rings. No number, no sound. Then a voice. 7 days.